Okay. But anyways, about your culture and things that you do with that. Keep going.
Well, there's several things we do for our culture, and one of them is the retreat. And we decided we would spend the money it took. We don't we don't know what the ROI is. We have no idea. Like there's no way to track that. But the thing that we found is that we get more out of them in August and September, and they buy in with each other better if they have gone to playing in January.
Yeah.
And the math doesn't necessarily add up to mean more dollars, and yet we're convinced it does mean more dollars. It does mean more camaraderie. I don't know if I mentioned it to you. I think I mentioned it on a TCS call, but someone was asking about why we do certain things, and basically I said that we've been talking to that are like, yeah, if as a single paving crew, if you get over 10 million, you're topped out, you know, X number of tons, $10 million doing driveways and parking lots. Your profit is high, but if you go above that, you're gonna, what you do have to do is double. You have to get two crews. You have to basically double. And
Mhm.
of course, everybody knows when you double anything, you don't make double the money. That's not the way
No,
it works.
no.
But people is if you get to 10 million, that should be your sweet spot. And you should stay there because your profit margins are going to be amazing. You're going to be able to make, you know, quite a bit of money. And if you control that growth, then you're good, right? So we were like, okay, we believe that. Well, then we went from 8 million to almost 11 million, and our guys are like, we're hiring, go up, and then what I was saying earlier about we do the retreat in the early of the year. I also do goal setting
Hmm.
and connect with the guys. Also promise them that every quarter they're going to get some kind of conversation.
Yeah.
And we can get into that in a minute if you want, but I guarantee that they're going to get some kind of conversation from me, their supervisor, or in a group setting.
Yeah.
And I can get in how we do that group set. But
It's
the thing that happened as far as our what we thought our ceiling was 10 million with one paving crew,
mhm.
is we kept adding a couple of people, and it's like, okay, we have a pretty big paving crew. Like they're seeing a ton of productivity.
Right.
So then we went to like 11.8 million or something like that, and only about 900,000 of it was seal coat. And so we were well over 10 million, and it seemed like the paving crew had more in the tank. Like, and so we get to the end of this, we look back at what happened, and our paving crew, now granted the type of jobs changed. Residential is down here in Oregon, almost all over the country, probably because the recession's starting to hit that mid-level spending pretty good. Like people will buy houses if they can get the right interest rate. They'll buy cars,
Right.
and they'll all stuff. They'll buy a bunch of Christmas presents. But that $10,000 to $30,000 thing in the middle, driveways, they're not buying them as much.
Yeah.
So residential's down, but our commercial was up. Our crew did about 13.8 million, one crew
Yeah.
this year. We
Yeah.
thought our top 10 million. They did 13.8. And literally, as I've done year-end conversations with them, talking about how things went, and I have a certain series of questions I kind of use with that.
Hmm.
And what we're finding out is everybody's like, yeah, I think we're probably maybe at 80, 75 or 80% of what we can do. I think we can go, I think we can keep going. And
Yeah.
literally, the person I asked that to is saying, yeah, we can do more.
And that's you
And
asking.
it all stems from those things that we do. If
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's me.
It's kind of cutting in and out a little bit on your end. So um just know that every once in a while it'll freeze for a minute. Um but that's coming from an employee of yours. That's not you saying, hey, I think you guys are at 75, 80% and you have more in the tank. That's coming from them and you just asking the question. Normally it's the opposite effect that goes on.
Yeah. Let me see. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can make this. Oh no, I'm on Wi-Fi. I don't know what the glitch is, but we'll just work through it.
Okay. Um, when you said that, you said something a minute ago about how there's not necessarily a dollar amount that's attached to investing in your culture, but there is, I mean, do you think it's almost like compound interest? Because, when you said that when you put your guys on a plane and you go somewhere and you invest into them personally in what would be your off season or just a point in time, like you really feel like that comes out, or that the investment that you made in them then shows up 9 months from then. You know what I mean? And would you said, around September, August, is that when you guys are busiest, or do you not really have a peak part of the season to where you're just cranking, because up here, like September.
September is like
Go ahead.
September is crisis month. I mean, it's everything. Everything hits in September. Now we work a lot of hours in July and August. I mean, everybody wants to. Everybody should, right? And but the phone rings a lot in August or September. A lot of procrastinators come out of the woods. A lot of people decide they're going to do something
Mm-hmm.
in September,
Mm-hmm.
late August, early September.
Mm-hmm.
Our crisis. It's a good crisis, but it's a crisis. Like everything is important
Yeah.
to everybody,
Yeah.
and including our culture. Like let's make sure to keep our eyes on the ball in September.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Now, because primarily we're speaking to an audience of high performing people. Okay. Because, I don't really even want to use the term entrepreneurs because it's too narrow of a group of people, because you don't have to be a business owner or somebody that's at a peak point of leadership to be a high performing person. You know what I mean? Like you can still lead the people around you, whether it's family, friends, whatever it might be. And I think that when you have the mind frame of somebody that does think that way, you just naturally think further ahead than others. And so, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just my opinion and feeling from what I see, like people that don't think necessarily as fast pace as you and I do, or as far forward ahead as you and I do, they hold on to things longer. You know what I mean? So, hey, I like the impact that I felt 9 months ago is still impacting me today. And so it's almost like they're waiting for the opportunity for that impact to actually show up, or just, show out really, to come out of them. And so it comes out in the times to where it's challenging. It's a high impact moment and then a high application moment. If you don't have that high application moment, then that high impact moment is kind of waiting for its opportunity to show itself. And so I'm kind of like processing and listening to this as you're talking about it, thinking, well, yeah, that would make sense. Why it might not make sense to you and me, or your average business owner, but you have to almost put your mind or put yourself in the mind frame of somebody else. You know what I mean? Like it blows my mind when people come up to me and they remember things I did or said or whatever, like years ago. you know, that's that's
yep.
that's done. I don't even remember. It's just something I did, but it impacted them so much. They carried that with them, but it's relative too, because people that have impacted me a long time ago, because they were able to be an influence on me, like those things stayed with me way longer than they will ever know. You know what I mean? So it's relative to where you're at, but I think it is compounded interest, and it really, it's a hard thing for a business owner to invest money, time, effort, whatever it is, or just a person to invest things that you don't see the immediate results in, and you're more just doing it out of hope, hope and faith, really. Faith
Yeah.
that this is the right move to make, and hope that it doesn't crash and burn.
Yep.
So, and that's,
But
go ahead.
every time we do something that we think in our mind is going to help culture regarding relationship, whether it be a fun time with the crew, like I know you try to do fun things with your guys, take them out to steak dinner. We every quarter we do something fun with ours too. It
Mhm.
might be a meal. That's what we'll do in January.
Okay.
While after breakfast, I do a little speech
Yep.
and kind of give the vision for where we're headed in the next 3 months. And every quarter we do something like that, and we take them go karting, or we take them do something fun.
It doesn't
Like,
have to be an extravagant thing, is what I'm
no,
getting from you. It just has to be something to let somebody know that, hey, I appreciate you.
yep, that's right. So this next time, I think we're going to do axe throwing
Okay.
as a company. Just something
Yeah.
fun they can see about them,
Yeah.
and then we go pull it off, and
Yeah.
we pay them. This is middle of the day stuff, so we
Oh,
pay them.
you pay them for that time.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's I'm glad you said that, because I have a tendency to want to go 100% or not at all. You know what I mean? If I can't if I can't execute the massive plan that I have in my head that I would like to do for everybody, then it's not worth it for me. But the problem with that is I'm shorting them on the opportunity for me to tell them, like, hey, I just appreciate you. And it doesn't mean I have to, you know, it doesn't mean I have to have this big, extravagant, expensive party in order to do that. Like, it's the simple things. And that's, like I said, I'm glad you said that, because that's something that I very easily lose sight of, and it's because I don't receive things that way. So I find it, maybe it's a little weird that I would think that way, but I don't need people to do big things for me. I feel awkward when people do things for me. I do, because I would rather give than receive. Um, and yeah, I don't think I need to go into that very much further, but just the noticing of, the simple things make the biggest impact sometimes, and they remember that.
yeah. So that's one of the glitches in the entrepreneurial space. Part of the reason that each of us are in this, we want to do more, go higher, be in control of our own emotions
Yeah.
and our own input,
Yep.
and then and that's probably more the answer than it is the output.
Yeah.
Yeah, I as an entrepreneur, I as a business owner, I want to be control of the output, but really emotionally, that little kid that lives inside us, we want to control the input.
Right.
That's why we're in this space.
Interesting. I um I was trying to move the screens here, so I got a little bit distracted, but um this the retreat that you're putting together for your guys, how do you handle the females in your company? Because I'm thinking, it's like, all right, that sounds like a really great idea. The problem with it is I can only feel comfortable about including 90% of us, because we're mainly guys and one female. And I don't know if you've met Heather on one of the conference calls or not. But it's like, she's dating somebody, and so I don't want to create an awkward situation for anybody involved, but I also, um, you have to be selective of who you include, for one.
Yeah.
You have to be aware of everybody's feelings and positions, and I don't want to disclude anybody either. So how do you feel that would be an appropriate way to approach that?
Well, like I said, a couple of the year of COVID, we went away, and it was just men. There was 17, I think it was 17 of us, and it was just men.
Okay.
And we had Lillian and Karen in our office,
Yeah.
and we planned this trip, and my wife, both of them go connect together. So
Yeah.
so they understand it. And there is a point where, like, when you have more than one woman, then it makes it a tons easier. It really does. So we have to, as leaders, we just have to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, if you sat down with Heather and said, so this is what I'm thinking about doing, but the problem, Heather, is that it's, for now, it's going to have to exclude you because of this whole
Yeah.
yeah, awkward thing, and we really need to connect as a male team, and she probably would get it.
I know that she would. It's more my problem with wishing that I didn't have to deal with that, and it would just be easier. I know that she would be very much understanding, and she works solely in the office. She doesn't work out in the field on the production side of things. So there is that definitive line of just two sides of the company, you know what I mean? So it's not like she's involved in the same side and she would feel ousted.
Right.
So it's more me trying to wishing that the situation was different than it is.
Yeah. Well, when you get through your next, very likely a gal, you know, not always, not necessarily, but someday you'll probably be married, right?
Yeah.
And so you're gonna have other women in your life where it's gonna make this easier.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is a little awkward, and it's something. It's a little hurdle to get over, but it's not a high hurdle. It's a short hurdle.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
So, let's jump into some of the topics we kind of left off on last time. And
Let me try something with
okay.
Let me try something with my Wi-Fi and see if I can make it better here.
Okay. And if you want to stop the video, reset your Wi-Fi, disconnect, reconnect to see if that would help, we can do that too. I can edit this together, no problem.
Yeah. No, it actually looks really strong, so I don't know what's going on with it.
Okay. So I'm going to save that one for last because that one's going to be my favorite. But you had mentioned something last time that I have circled here, and you said no boots in the field.
Yeah, that was me, right? That was that. Yeah.
Yep.
So this is me talking about succession plan, right? So
Okay.
what are we going to do? What is Kyle going to do with his business 10 years? And I, at almost 60 years old, am looking at 10 years out, and I'm seeing a picture where there's almost never boots on my feet unless I'm cutting wood out in my yard.
Right.
I'm not seeing it for my business. I'm just not seeing it. I'm picturing sitting in rooms teaching people how to do business. I'm picturing in my mind sitting in rooms doing goal setting and handling, more almost counseling rather than getting my hands dirty. And now I want them to know that if I need to get my hands dirty, then I'm definitely willing.
Yeah.
And I think most of them know that, but most of them also don't allow me to do it. Like, I'll go out on a job site and I don't wear boots, and they probably know that, but without even noticing that I don't got my boots on.
Yeah.
Standing out in mix,
Mm-hmm.
just so that I can talk to them and whatever, just touch base with them real quick. And so for me, what that means is I don't wear boots anymore. Is where is my best and greatest?
Yeah.
Actually, when it comes right down to it, as I was reflecting, I'm putting together a talk, and I'm working on some, my short speech for my guys that's coming up, that I've been thinking about. What is my best and greatest?
Mm-hmm.
And it was never actually the boots in the field.
Yeah.
I had a ceiling on my productivity that was much lower than most of the guys around me, actually. And I was holding them all back. And when I started to realize that about 5 years ago, it made that transition a lot easier. It didn't make it easy on me, but it made it way easier on them.
Yeah.
And you and I talked the term personal development, and I break everything down into the small pieces of each word, and just because I want to simplify if possible.
Yep.
And so I look at that term personal development, and I look at the word person. Well, I'm just one person. So if I'm going to do personal development and I'm going to make an impact, then it's multiple people that matter.
Right.
If I dig into something and learn something, then I need to actually consider who's it going to affect besides me. Because if it's just affecting I won't say it's meaningless, but it's heading that direction of meaningless if it only makes me better.
Right.
If it makes me better for the purpose of making others better, then I'm in. So great analogy is the latest Ed Milet book. Just want I forget the exact.
Just one more or something.
Just one
Something
more.
along. Yeah. Yep. Something along the lines of one more.
On audio a couple of times, like, yeah, it's a good book. But one of the things he's talked about that he refers to in that book, but he's talked about it before, is, are you the one more in your family? Are you the guy that's going to change it all? And I look at myself and I say, you're dang right, I'm that guy. I'm going to change it all so that I have a legacy. But in my company, if I keep my boots on at 59 and a half years old, so much out of the guys, keep yelling at them, keep doing all the things I did for the last 30 years, then they're not going to grow and I'm going to stay the same. And so I need to first figure out myself, trust myself that yes, I am not, my highest and greatest is not with boots in the field.
Yeah.
That actually belongs to someone else. And then I have to figure out, well, how do I energize them? How do I give them more, get in their life? Because I see them going further than that, most of them.
Yeah.
And if they're wearing boots every day, what does that mean for them? How can I make them better? How can I get them to their greatest spot in life?
Right.
And if I have time to think about that, if I have my boots on, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about producing.
Yeah.
And so that's not to say that, Kyle, at your age, you're going to necessarily do that. You got to put your boots on and go to work. I get it.
Right.
You got a small company.
Right.
But when you look out, when your listener looks out 10 years, what do you see? What is the picture that you see that's got different pictures inlaid in it, that's drawn in pencil, that could be erased and a new picture put in each corner of it? What do you see?
Yeah.
And that brought me a lot of clarity. I look out 10 years and I see impacting other companies, other company owners at the heart level, not just mine, but also at the heart. I can light up my 10 guys. Another guy says, I can light up my 20 guys. I can light up my 30. and I can do it in some of the ways that K&L's done it, but I can do it in my own ways too.
Right.
And that's what I picture in 10 years being the highest.
I'm going through that right now. Not that I don't enjoy the space that I'm in, but I've just been able to start thinking early, like, where do I want to go? And I think part of that is coming from, I want to grow myself beyond my business. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to take one business and grow it to the hilt. I would rather have 5 businesses versus one. I would rather have, a multitude of investments versus put all my eggs in one basket. That's just the way that I feel. Like that vision and foresight gives me excitement in order to do that. There's a lot of people that are going to argue that, it might, well, why don't you just do it this way? Well, that's just because what I want to do, that's what I feel like right now. But, and then thinking to myself, I can't forget that the thoughts wouldn't have come had there not been people in place to put them in my mind. You know what I mean? Meaning mentors, people that are ahead of me that are willing to invest into me, friends, which is people like yourself. You know what I mean? You are one of those people that I'm talking about. And I'm able to say friends and able to say that my friends mentor me because of the surroundings that I've created, the environment of a network of people that I put myself in. So I just can't put the credit on myself that I think this way. It's something that has been built into me. But to start thinking, all right, if I want to get there, it's going to take time to do it. What do I have to do now in order to eventually end up over there, like you're saying? And I've started saying that to the guys here. And we're kind of, even on a small scale, we're getting to the point to where there's upper management, like there is a few key people that are making the decisions and then delegating that across the board. And so when I say upper management, I've said the phrase, we have to buy shoes that are bigger than we fit so we can grow into them. And what I mean by that is not necessarily spend a bunch of money, but our company has to be able to function on a bigger scale, even while we're smaller. Practical action means me, like, it might be as simple as me delegating something to somebody else and saying, that's not my job, that's your job. And we start that habit early. Could I do it? Is there time to do it? Sure. But the sooner we can change that habit and pattern now, the faster we can grow into it later, and the quicker everybody else is going to be able to just take over those. It becomes a natural mode of operation, and so I get what you're saying, and I, in that, you can't look so far ahead and want that so bad that you don't enjoy the process to get there, because that's something that I've learned too, is what does enjoying the process mean? It means, like, you have to be happy about where you're at. You have to enjoy where you're at. You have to be excited about what tomorrow brings and what today gave you. You can't be discouraged because you're not where you want to be. And I think you were, as you were talking, I'm thinking, like, this, it's really, I feel like it would be really good for the older generation to hear a lot of these things, because there are so many people.
It's a problem.
It is. There are so many people that almost don't want to pass the torch because they put their value in where they're at. Okay. They put their value in what they've done and where they're at. And so they feel like, if I pass the torch and if I put this knowledge to somebody else and I elevate myself, I lose my identity. I lose my value. I don't get to, I don't get to solidify my place in my own company. Well, it's not like that. you're going to, and you've realized that you bring more value to the people that you allow to grow their own roots, and especially realizing where you're most effective, at which takes a humble heart. I mean, that's the cut and dry truth, is it takes a humble heart, and it takes knocking down your pride in order to realize that, for one thing, because you have to change your way of thinking, for one thing. And it popped into my mind as you were saying that, something that a mentor of mine has told me a long time ago, and has told me for many years throughout. And it's that if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So you can't expect to do the same thing and produce a different result.
Yep.
Just because you want to to be in a different place, just because you see yourself in a different place 10 years from now, doesn't mean that it's just magically going to happen unless you change the way that you operate. It's not a bad thing. It's, quite honestly, you need that change.
Yeah. And for me, I'm not change opposed. I like change,
Yeah.
in most ways.
Yeah.
I like the energy of things, and yet I don't term it as change. I
Mhm.
I term it as taking a little step, a little bit of growth, a little bit of understanding. There's a biblical phrase that talks about marriage, men how they're supposed to live with their wives. It's not the normal Ephesians 6 passage. It's a different one, and I don't know the passage at the moment, but it talks about live with your wives in an understanding manner. And that one to me is like the clincher of how I get to my highest and best in life, is to understand, first of all, who I am, what am I trying to accomplish, why did God put me on this earth? That's this earth.
Mm-hmm.
What is my highest and best, if I can even get a glimpse of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't have to change a ton to get there, because he already gave me the tools. He already built me like I was supposed to be built.
Yeah.
It's not literally about changing clothes here.
Yeah.
You take them all off, you shower, and you put all whole new clothes on.
Mm-hmm.
No, the idea is that he gave you things are who you are, and they're going to get you to your highest and best.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just change, and it's growth. Well, how do I make what I do have?
Mm-hmm.
How do I leverage it? How do I look out? And we talked about the 10-year picture where it's written in pencil and you can change it.
Yeah.
Then I always pull it into about 3 years and say, okay, but 3 years from now, what is my target?
Yeah.
As I look at my circle, now I think today that I want to hit that red spot in the middle, right?
Yeah.
But if I just hit the target period somewhere on the paper,
Yeah.
then you know what, I'm better, because I'm going to begin to understand if that red spot that I'm shooting for, is that actually where I want to hit or not.
Mm-hmm.
But if I hit something, it's going to reveal itself, and all of a sudden I'm living in an understanding manner of
Mm-hmm.
that 10-year picture.
Mm-hmm.
If I hit the paper somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't
So
have
for me, I think that we're already given enough to get started, and we don't have to change so much. We need to just grow a little bit, understand a little bit better ourselves.
Well, you, you can call a lot of people out with that statement, where the statement of we're already given a lot to start with, and because I feel like there's a natural tendency of people to want answers to questions when they already have the answers, or just not convinced it's the one that they would like to hear. You know what I mean? I think that our gut and our intuition tells us the direction that we need to go, which, if you're a believer, then we can call that the Holy Spirit. Like when God told us, I'm leaving you now, but I'm leaving you with a part of me
Yeah.
inside you. Like people want to excuse that for the universe and, many other substitutes for what it actually is. But the legitimate explanation of, a quote unquote guiding light inside you is God's spirit inside us that gives us the intuition and the gut feeling of right versus wrong, what to do, what not to do. And so I feel like a lot of our life is based around fighting that, you know? And so then if you want to excuse that with biblical principles and truths, God says, I've got it written on my bathroom window or bathroom mirror, because it's something that I want to see every single day. And it's lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will lead your path straight. But what we have to remind ourselves is we already know, there's a certain part of us that already knows what we should be doing and what we need to be doing. For whatever reason, we need confirmation and to be convinced that that's the actual right thing to do.
Yes. And so the verse you just quoted, that's my life verse. What I want in my life is straight paths.
Mm-hmm.
I want this clean, steady. Almost never have it because my mind doesn't. But I want that.
Yeah.
Because I want to know where I'm supposed to go. I want to know how I'm supposed to get there. I want peace, joy, and fullness in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I want those three things, and a straight path is part of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you break that verse down. Those two middle parts of it is lean not on your own understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's humbling yourself. I need to dig into understanding.
Mm-hmm.
I do need to do personal development. I do need to understand that what I change in me is going to, and
what say that again? It cut out. What you change in you
is going to affect others. I need to understand what's going on around me. I need to be aware,
mm-hmm.
and that's one of the. It's like that verse: trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your understanding, in all your ways acknowledge Him. It's a progression. It's a progression. Yep. Part to get to the straight path. It's three parts. And I work it backwards because trust in the Lord for me is the hardest. You see, so I work it backwards. Okay, I lean not on my understanding, acknowledge God, acknowledge Him in all my ways. Mm-hmm. Okay, I can do those two things because those are functions. I can kind of work on those.
Yeah.
Trust is a little bit of an outcome of that, even though I have to literally take the steps.
Yeah.
But the outcome, get that trust, and then I flip it all the way upside down to the very last phrase. That's how I get to straight paths.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're able to point out a weakness or a vulnerability, and that trust is the hardest thing for you to do, because I mean, you're somebody that has a very strong faith, and everybody knows, like, you're not silent about that, but people need to know where others struggle. I mean, why hide that? And so I'm just like, when you said that, it gave me a good feeling, because it's like, okay, well, if Keith is that way, then then it helps me feel a little more comfortable in my own skin, that I'm not, completely way out in left field. Because you're somebody that I look up to. So if you're willing to admit those things, and it's okay for me to admit those things, even to myself, because if I can't admit them to myself, then I can't work on them to improve them.
Yeah.
You can spend so much time thinking about, why am I this way? And you don't actually solve the, you don't actually find the solution. You fixate on the problem rather than the solution. And, are you a C.S. Lewis fan?
Yes.
So have you read the Screw Tape Letters?
Yes, I have. It's been a long time, but I definitely remember the story behind it.
And there's a theme that goes through that book that, and for those that have not read the book, it is basically, you've got good and bad side to Christianity, angels and demons, God and Satan. So basically what it is you've got, there's two demons involved, a student and a mentor. And the mentor is teaching the student how to manipulate us as people. And there's a theme in a large part of the book that is portrayed as they don't need, in order for them to be successful, they don't need us to do something drastically bad. In order for us to be successful, the only thing that they need, or in order for them to be successful, the only thing that they need to get us to do is be distracted from our goal. That's it. Don't even worry about turning them 180 degrees and ruining their life. That's too much. All you need is for them to be distracted in the smallest form, because if it's a small form of distraction, it's undetectable. You need to be undetectable in how you're manipulating your project, that they were talking about. And another thing that his name's Richard Forrest, and I'm sure that he'll listen to these at some point in time. But another thing that he had taught me growing up is that the only thing Satan needs to succeed is for good people to do nothing. And the first time I heard that, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And the imagery I get when I hear that phrase, the only thing Satan needs to succeed is for good people to do nothing. How many people do you see that sit on the couch and waste time? They're not doing anything wrong, but they're not investing in themselves and their potential. They're being stagnant. And I feel like people become okay with being complacent because, well, I'm not moving forward, but at least I'm not moving backwards. Well, why don't we challenge that with the factor of time? If time keeps going and you're not doing anything different, then it's moving away from you in a forward direction and you're staying here. So what you could have done with that time, you now didn't, and you lost that opportunity. So if you were to look at it, in a timeline from left to right, your progression on yourself stayed where you started from and time kept moving. So now you're behind. So really, you could be going backwards if you look at it in that framework.
That's for sure.
It's it's a lot to think about, but I mean, that's, man, if you can wrap your mind around some of those principles and then carry that with you throughout the day, like just the subconscious thoughts of what did I do the last 5 minutes? What am I doing the next 5 minutes? Like what is this time? What am I doing with myself with this time?
Yeah. That's the very reason why I've committed 31 years ago to making sure that I opened the book every day. I don't care if it's on an app or the actual physical Bible.
Yeah.
That's the one way I can rest assured that I've moved a tiny bit forward every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually not always forward. Sometimes it's just maintenance.
Yeah.
In light of it by saying this many times over the years that it's kind of like taking vitamins.
Okay.
Like when you work out and you get in shape and you do these things, but if you're eating like crap, then and you're not drinking your greens or whatever it is,
Right.
then your body doesn't have the capability to move as fast as it should.
Right.
It's to regenerate like it should. And so,
Yeah.
reading scripture and thinking about the right things and living in an understanding manner and a way earlier, the only way to rest assured that I'm doing that is to get a little bit of right input every day, a few vitamins to make sure that what I am doing is not being lost.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not doing a lot, like we all have busy lives, we all get distracted, and we all get off of that target just a little bit.
Yeah.
But if we're not taking the vitamins, if we're not giving us an opportunity to reset, then we are literally lost.
Did you say that we're literally lost?
Yes, we're literally lost if we don't get the right input. And I'm talking about every day of your life. If we don't get the right input, then we're literally lost and don't even know it.
The every day of your life thing, everybody needs to hear, because you become, it's like, oh, well, I did it yesterday, or I'll do it tomorrow, or I got it today, I don't need tomorrow, or 5 days out of the week. You know what I mean? It's like every day of your life, it's important.
Yes. And the other part of that is that I actually can wait in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the goal? What's the 10-year picture?
Mm-hmm.
What's the 3-year target?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to be the kind of person that on around me, then I have to have the awareness.
Right.
I have to find awareness somewhere, and
Right.
it's got to be on myself.
Yeah.
It has to.
Yeah.
I can't get it on my own. I just can't. And again, I go back to the fact that I can be starving and not know it.
Mm-hmm. Because by the time, I mean, your body even works that way. By the time you feel hunger, you've been hungry for a long time. This, and the same thing with dehydration.
Yeah, that's for sure. Especially our entrepreneurial space is much that way.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll go until 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon and realize that I haven't eaten.
Yeah.
I have a great example of this. I was at a conference recently, and there was a guy there that has that IV vitamins.
The liquid IV. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the guy that was administering it for him, anyway, he was officially correct to be able to do it.
Okay.
And I decided to do it. So did my wife, and we were like the 12th or 15th person that day that had done it. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he said, it's really odd. I'm around this group, and normally people get woozy and people complain about, this small list of things that they feel during it, and they complain. He said, today I have not had one complaint. Like, it's just really weird. I wonder why that is.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I know why. And he said, well, okay. And I said, what you're dealing with is people in this building right now that are high performers. Mm. And everyone knows how to live in discomfort. Every single person in this room, in this building today, it's a business conference. Everybody knows how to live in discomfort for the sake of getting somewhere better or more. And I said, so when somebody decides to sit in this chair, they understand that perhaps there's going to be some game.
Yeah.
And we live our lives as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as fathers, as husbands, as wives, as mothers, in discomfort.
Yeah.
And we just go do the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't let it stop us. And
we let us stop us. We just go do the thing. And actually, we do need to be more aware, like, what is going on in me and with me. Am I actually hungry? Is that good for me to stay hungry?
Mm-hmm.
More things done if I just stay hungry.
Right. Well, I mean, it takes time away from what I want to do. It takes too much time.
It takes too much time to eat decent. Yes. So
So I have you say that, and I'm pointing out identifiers of myself. I can relate to a lot of that. Where I have a problem is, and I'll just be vulnerable and honest. Um, because everybody's going to struggle with this it, in one form or another. So I might as well be vulnerable about where I struggle with it. And that's personal relationships when it comes into the dating space. I've been engaged twice, I've never been married. And when you said everybody here is used to living in an uncomfortable space and they just deal with it, it's hard for me to then associate with somebody that doesn't understand that, because it's just a natural way for me to operate. So then I respond with, it's not as hard as you're making it out to be. It's really not that hard. Just deal with it, move on, move forward. Like, the answer to your problem is not to stay here and fixate on it. The answer to your problem is to accept that it's there and push through it. But that's not received by everybody. And I know that, so I'm going to say that. And I'm interested in your response, but also I think that it ties in very well and can be applicable with what you said earlier. You, I don't know if it was Ephesians 6 or if it was a different passage that you referenced when it said, living with your spouse. Basically, live in understanding with your spouse. Can you kind of repeat that again?
live with your wife is the version that I got a number of years ago.
It broke up just for a second. So live with your wife
in an understanding manner.
Which,
yep.
When you said that the first time, my mind went to a place of, it doesn't say be understood or get your wife to understand you.
No.
So what we're talking about is an intimate relationship. And so you have that intimate relationship with you and your business and your employees and your wife. And nowhere in there does it say you need to be understood.
That's right. We should reveal ourselves.
Yeah.
Provide the opportunity to be understood.
Right.
We should do that.
Right.
And be vulnerable and be open and transparent, especially when the opportunity comes, because often we don't even do it when the opportunity. So
and for me, it's like, I operate with the framework that if I'm looking out for somebody else's feelings and they're looking out for mine, then each person's covered. And so if you're going to pair yourself in any sense, even leadership inside your business, if they're not looking out for you and they're only looking out for themselves, then the camaraderie doesn't function well. You know what I mean? Like the team isn't united. So what
that's very true. So it definitely goes, these ideas go to work with us. That's for sure. They should go to work with us. If they don't, then we're missing it.
Yeah.
I know a lot of examples in my life that men compartmentalize. I can talk as a man. I am one. I get it. They compartmentalize. They make a disaster at home. They say things and do things that are not right, and then they go to work and they expect themselves to perform well. And there, we all know that, and yet they can compartmentalize for a while.
Yeah. I want to I don't want to bypass this last topic, and I've got prodigal father written down here and circled, because there it's been talked about between you and your relationship with Keith Jr. and a lot of the things that he's went through in the past. And you guys are pretty open about that, right?
Mhm.
And most of what I've seen is kind of from, it's the prodigal son scenario, um, where what that means to people that don't know is there's a good foundation. The son goes off on his own, um, basically all but ruins his life, and then eventually comes back to that solid foundation, not knowing what is there for him, but there's nowhere else to go. And so he's willing to just kind of exist in that space, but not function within it because he's too ashamed of what he did when he left. So but we've heard a lot and continue to hear a lot from Keith Jr. On that. And I want to give you the opportunity to speak on that, because in maybe in specifics to business, because even though somebody might not have that exact same situation happen within their family, if you're a business owner or you're in a space for leadership, you do have people that come and go. And so you've experienced that on a massive scale in a very large capacity. So you have the best understanding, I feel like, to relate to a smaller scale and a smaller understanding. Let's say somebody in a management position, to where they have an employee that comes and goes, or you try to set them up for success. They don't take the bait, and you get in. What do you do with people that quit and come back later? You know what I mean? That is something that I feel like everybody or more people can relate to, but you're going to have the greatest understanding of that.
So hone that in on a couple of questions, at least one question to get me started.
Okay. To get you started.
Huge subject. I can go all over the so.
Well,
Yeah.
but honestly, it is a huge subject. I know that. And I'm kind of like not opening up a can of worms, but opening up a giant door here. And I can pick a question, but what I was hoping for is you would start on what stands out most to you.
Okay. Without crying, okay? It's hard for me
Yeah.
to talk about this because it's deep. It matters.
Yeah.
And we're talking 8 years ago,
Yeah.
and I will say this, that the prodigal father, while the son was gone, someday if he's a real person, I want to meet him, because I'm pretty sure the prodigal father beat himself up.
Mm.
The prodigal father didn't live in this perfect little land where he decided in his head, okay, well, my son's gone and I'm just gonna hope for the best. He was probably very active. Now, did he pursue his son? No, because he knew as the story goes, the son had to go do the son's thing.
Yeah.
Whatever the son had to do it.
Right.
But the father spent, it doesn't identify in the story how long he was gone,
Mm-hmm.
but it does indicate that it was a long time, and there was a lot of money, so it took a while to run out. So
Yeah.
let's guess it at least a year or two.
Yeah.
and after the first many months of the father beating himself up and wondering what he did wrong and trying to live in an understanding manner towards his son, then he finally figured out, how do I prepare for my son's return?
Mm.
That's what he had to figure out.
Yeah.
Now, that one took me a long time because my son, he didn't leave me. I saw him not dead, and it broke my heart every time.
Yeah.
Because I know he was on the wrong path. He was losing weight, all these things that I didn't know exactly what they indicated. I just knew they weren't good.
Yeah.
I know a lot more now, but I was seeing things and I just knew they weren't good.
Mm-hmm.
And it was heartbreaking. But thank God for his mother, who had a God-given strength at the time,
Mm-hmm.
that when she was able to talk to him, she basically told him, don't blame me. And then when she would listen to me complain about the situation, what she would say to me, especially when I would complain and get to the point of saying, we just have to change the locks on the buildings. We have to make sure he's out of our life. He's ruining everything.
Yeah.
He's making a disaster of everything. This is the hard part for me. She would usually reach it. Now, if it wasn't super intense, if it was me just, and she would say, yeah, I understand what you're saying. And I feel the same way. But when he comes back, he needs you.
Mm.
And if you do what you say you're going to do, he may not come back. The words she said and the way she said them had to be from God. Phrasing it that way, and maybe she didn't. Maybe it just went into my ears and my head that way, because God needed me to hear that I have to be ready when he returns.
Yeah.
So in the story of the prodigal son, the prodigal father, it was a long period of time. And when the son walked up the road, how far out was he when he was noticed? He was still a long way off. He was still a long way off. The dad noticed him. The dad hiked up his robe, which is what they lived in back then, and did something which was 100% socially unacceptable. And he ran to his son. He exposed his legs to the world. And that was unheard of. And he ran, a mature, honorable man in that passage.
Mm-hmm.
In my world, in the Callaway's world,
Mm-hmm.
a mature, honorable man does not get walked on.
Yeah.
That's what the world told me. That's what some of my Christian friends told me. Your son is ruining you. You're depressed. You're not yourself. I lost weight. I couldn't eat. I felt nauseous. And I had friends that cared so deeply for me. They said, you have to do something about this.
Mm-hmm.
You have to remove this issue. Otherwise you will perish. You will die. And I'm hearing them say this on one side, and they are wrong, not wrong. And then I'm hearing this on my wife saying this on the other side. And again, maybe it's not her words. Maybe it's the words I needed to hear directly from God, is that and when he returned, if you hear Keith Jr.'s story, and when you hear mom's version of that last time when he got out of prison or jail,
Mm-hmm.
before he went to rehab. If you hear Keith Jr.'s version, you hear grace, you hear understanding, you hear a compassion. None of it. None of it.
Say that last part again. None of it. What?
His mom and I were not feeling compassion. We were not feeling love.
Yeah.
We were feeling everything but that.
Right.
We wanted joy, peace, fullness. We want all the things everybody wants.
Yeah.
And we could not find it in our lives. It didn't exist. And so what we had to do together, what she had to do was take my best friends and not tell them, but basically reject what they said.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to prepare myself for his return.
So
but what that meant is that once he did return, he went to recovery, and so did I.
Okay.
Because I just survived. I prepared myself so that I could survive until the point that he walked back down the road towards me. I was walking. Temptation was to be vengeful, to be bitter, to be frustrated. And what I allowed God to do in my life was to break me to the point where none of that mattered anymore. And that's what the prodigal father did.
Yeah.
He allowed God to break him to the point where he even stood up to his other son, who said, "It's not right that you just created a feast for this guy that ruined our lives." And the father didn't deny. He didn't say you're right or wrong. He said, "Yes, but he's back." He's back. That's the point.
So I can't help but make the correlation to how we kind of started this whole discussion with knowing where you want to be in the future. Where you wanted to be in the future in that moment with Keith Jr. is you wanted to be in a place that you were able to receive him.
Yes. I want it to be whole. I want him to be whole, and I want us to be whole.
Yep.
And I literally had to focus on that.
Yep.
What that did was it broke. I didn't see it possible.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly didn't think it was going to happen.
Yeah. But your desire for that was greater than the willingness to walk away. You know, your desire for that was greater than your fear that it wouldn't happen.
Yes. And let me go back to something real quick. I just told you and your listeners that for 31 years, I didn't miss a day in the Word, right? Okay. But during that two-year period where Keith Jr. was off being the prodigal, I never missed a day.
Yeah.
I needed truth beyond myself so bad that I sought for it anywhere I could find it. And I knew I could find it in Scripture. I knew it.
Yeah.
Now, was it always relevant? Did it always go to my heart and to the heart of the situation? No, actually, rarely it did. And when I prayed, when I cried out to God, do I feel into the throne of heaven and all those grand places that our prayers are supposed to go? No, I feel like they were hitting the ceiling and dropping back on top of me and crushing me. That's the way it felt.
Yeah.
But Scripture said something different. It said, when you cry out, he hears. And when you're being onslaughted by your enemy, which I was, then he will protect you. That's what Scripture says, along with a lot of other things.
Yeah.
And what I had to do during that time is figure out if what I said I believed, I actually believed. And if I did, then I would have to force myself to take the next breath and force myself to put my feet on the floor, get out of bed, and force myself to show up for my crew and force myself to humble myself in front of them, because that's part of my story too. I had to ask them, guys, can you be there for me?
Mm-hmm.
My employees, I cried in front of them more than once. I said, can you guys do this for me?
Yeah.
I don't have what it takes.
Yeah.
And they did it. They did it day after day.
You, you almost don't know what to say after something like that. You know what I mean? Like, you just, it's one of those things that you're okay with. I'm okay with not having a response, because it's just like you just got to let it sink in, and your mind, my mind, and listening to it is racing in all different directions. It's hearing what you're saying. It's applying it to all, to different areas. It's understanding the depth and the magnitude and the passion behind it. And from both angles, but then realizing how it transfers, like something that is so impactful to one person's life, to push them to a place, to where you're at your wit's end, and you question who you are as a being, but still push through based on faith, because sometimes faith isn't easy, um but it's executed. And not everybody is going to have the experience that you have in that framework, but I feel like you're one of the best teachers of that, because you've gone through it so deeply, you know and I haven't gone through that same thing myself, because I'm not you, but I can relate to when you talk about you do it anyways and it doesn't feel good, and you have to and you have to challenge yourself. If I truly believe what I believe, then I have to act on it without the belief and let it prove itself to me on the backside. Does, I mean,
Well, let me add the part of the next step in the story
yeah.
is I mentioned it earlier that when he left for recovery,
Mm-hmm.
he went into rehab. Literally at that moment, so did I.
Yeah.
I am still in recovery. I still have times, not because of him, because I trust him now. But I still have this anxiety that I had during that period of time that feels physiologically the way it did then.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggled. I mentioned earlier that I struggle with the part of the passage, trust in the Lord.
Yeah.
I still don't know how I still don't know that I trusted during that time. What I do know is that I had built habits in my life from being in scripture to, doing the right things, thinking the right thoughts, showing up at work mostly the right ways.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of a screamer and yeller, but I did apologize for that occasionally, and I was
I,
relational. And so I did mostly, like, I had a lot of the right habits in my life.
I could not see that coming out of you, to be honest. Like, I don't
Well,
know
most
you that well.
most people most people can't. I'm actually a very intense guy, which you probably can see, but that intensity came
Yes.
out.
Yes.
Part of the reason that my boots, I'm not best in my boots, is because I see the end goal and I see that everybody around me standing in the way getting there,
Mm-hmm.
instead of seeing them as the people that are going to get us there.
Mm. Okay.
And so because I had that production mindset and it wasn't my greatest and highest, I
Yeah.
saw it, and so I got in the way.
Yeah.
But in regards to that recovery of mine, I still come against things in my mind, and I have to rotate back to the scriptures that I was reading, that I still read
Yeah.
often, the Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 passage, and just remember that there's mechanisms. I need to humble myself,
Yeah.
and I need to consider scripture. I need to consider things bigger than myself. I need to consider the other people in my life. If I
Yeah.
want the right path, I've got to do these things.
Yeah.
And that recovery period reminded me again that almost 30 years prior to that issue
Mm-hmm.
with Keith Jr., I had built habits that literally carried me through. Now, I was ready not to let them carry me through,
Mm-hmm.
but somehow I was hearing the right things,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't implode. Actually, I probably did implode, but there was enough. There was enough, and God will always give us enough to get through
Yeah.
the situation.
Do you, uh, what do you feel like the difference is between faith and belief? And in reference to that, because there, I mean, I'm wondering if there has to be one more than the other. In that space to where you said that you didn't necessarily have faith, you just kind of pushed through, or you didn't believe that it was going to happen. You just like there was enough there to go on, or maybe it was you didn't want to accept anything different, but I know that if we don't give God opportunities to work in our lives, then we have no use for him. You know what I mean? And I know that you know that too. But I truly believe in as a testament to my own life that there was something that clicked in me after God showed up. Until there was an opportunity for God to make a massive impact in my life and to show up in ways that I couldn't handle myself, then the reality for me changed. You know what I mean? And so maybe maybe I'm fixating on the words too much, but okay, do you believe these things will happen, or do you have faith that they will happen? Well, if you haven't experienced them in real time, then it's really hard to have a complete understanding of both, and so I quite literally have found myself in a space to where I feel like you get to practice the art of surrender. And the art of surrender is that which you have nothing left of yourself and you have to put it into somebody else's hands, which is very hard to do, especially, um, for somebody that likes to control the inputs, like we talked about earlier, when you have to, the physical act of surrendering, it's kind of like, you put your hands up. But when I had a very short and very deliberate conversation with God that says, fine, you fine, you do it. And that's pretty much how it went. Um, and you get to a place to where you say, I'm not doing any good here. If what I believe is actually going to serve me, then I need to give it the opportunity to do so, which means me getting out of the way, surrendering whatever it is I'm trying to take hold of, and there's a weight that's lifted, and you almost feel guilty about doing that because you don't want to put your responsibility on anything other than yourself, which is it's just hard in itself. It's hard for a guy. It goes against a lot of, what society teaches us, how we grow up. You always want to take responsibility for things, but when you put it in the hands of something or somebody else, in this case, God, that's hard because you remove yourself from any sort of contribution. But for me, I didn't have confirmation, actual, truthful confirmation until I got to a point to where I was in a situation that was bigger than me. So,
I'm I'm sitting here struggling with any distinction between faith and belief.
I
I
I
and
am
and,
too.
and the word trust in the Lord, the scripture, trust in the Lord with all your. I don't. I am not a complicated enough person to understand the difference.
Yeah.
I just am not. And if it's not cerebral and active and behavioral and a goal
Mm-hmm.
and one of the rings in my target and
Mm-hmm.
one of the pictures in my 10-year picture, if it's
Mm-hmm.
not all of those things, then I'm not sure what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And to it necessarily, I just need it simple enough in my life
Mm-hmm.
that, to me, I don't separate them. I've been sitting here thinking, well, the word, but it ends up that I don't function with them separate. I go back to a couple analogies. Do we believe that the chair is going to hold us?
Yeah.
Well, if the answer is yes, we sit down. If the answer is no, then we might not sit. Well, that's also similar to faith.
Mm-hmm.
Do we trust? Have you ever done a trust fall off a high rock and trust
Mm-hmm.
other people to catch you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, to me, they're also similar. That
Yeah.
I don't think I will divide them out
Mm-hmm.
separately. It complicates them too much,
Yeah.
and I need them simple.
Yeah.
Both in my mind, my heart, and my actions. They need to.
Yeah.
And I need to. They need to be. They need to be part of the whole.
Right. And what that's kind of alluding to is you trust that it can, you don't trust that it will. Until, that's what popped into my mind anyways. Let's say it like with a trust fall.
Mhm.
If you're hesitant about that at all, it's because you know that they can, but you don't know if they will catch you. It's only until they do catch you that you realize there was nothing to worry about in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, let's dig into that analogy. So
Okay.
the way to gain more trust in those people, whether you know them or not, if you were there for the same training they were, then you trust them more.
Mm-hmm.
Your level of trust goes up. It
Yep.
doesn't matter if you know the people.
Right.
What it matters is, was there an explanation of the safety that you do from a cerebral standpoint, and then this is how you stand, and there's a little tiny piece of practice that says
Mm-hmm.
this is how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you typically, not always, I've seen it before, but you typically start with someone lighter, right?
Yep.
you know This is the way it works. Whether you know the people or not,
Yeah.
by the time one of us 200-pound guys gets up there,
Yeah.
there's a level of trust that says that, gosh, even if they drop me, I'm not going to get hurt.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
And so that analogy actually fits really well with what we're talking about
Yeah.
is what kind of training did they get? What kind of training do I have? Did
Right.
I hear? Do I understand?
Right.
Am I aware? Are they aware in the same way? If they're aware in the same way, then I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, could one of the group be a little off? Yes, but that doesn't destroy the fact that they're still going to catch me.
Right. The majority is there. It's gonna work.
Majority is there. And so when it comes to God and faith, of do I understand every component of what he wants me to understand regarding faith and trusting him? No, there's no way I probably could.
Yeah.
But I understand gradually and progressively.
Yeah.
And so that means I continue to trust gradually and progressively also.
Mm-hmm.
And do things and act in such ways that indicate to myself
Mm-hmm.
and to those around me that I do trust.
Mm-hmm. Putting all that into the day to day, it's difficult, and then it goes back into the constant reinvestment daily, because it's not achievable unless it's something that you actively work towards every single day.
Well, it's difficult. I agree with you. So that I have a Facebook and Instagram and even LinkedIn. I put it out there every day. You get to work devotional.
Yeah.
One of the main reasons I named it that, it's somewhere between a minute and a half reading a scripture. I say something else with it. The reason I named it that is because if we don't ever go to work, we don't go earn the money. If we don't ever go to work, we don't keep the job.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't ever get up, put our feet on the floor, put the boots on, put the shoes on, put the suit on, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
steps to the get to work part. We got to prepare to go to work.
Right.
We got to comb our hair, brush our teeth, whatever it is your morning routine is to go to work. You do that every day because you realize work is important.
Yeah.
Well, why do we treat our faith journey different than that? Why do we treat our relationship with God different than that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we treat it like that, less than that, because we don't understand deep enough. We don't understand enough to realize that actually the real job is that job.
Right.
Is getting closer to God, is understanding what he wants us to understand, being aware of what he is aware of
Mm-hmm.
in and around us. And when we are in line with that, then when we physically go to work, we can say things and relate with people in such a way that then all of a sudden we're giving away that part of that relationship with God. We are helping people,
Mm-hmm.
even in a place where it's social things of God. You can do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's just you. Well, if you can't have me like this, then you're going to have to fire me. Because that's who I am.
Right. Right.
I'm compassionate. I'm the fruits of the Spirit.
Yeah.
I'm the things that are all good, and I'm not going to talk about it all the time, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to be it.
Well, it's it was going around for a long time. Tell me how you are X without telling me how you are X. You know what I mean? Like, tell me that you're an asphalt guy without telling me that you're an asphalt guy. How do you do that? It's because of the way that you live. And I was having a conversation with somebody just a couple nights ago, and we were talking about different religions and whatnot, and they had asked me my opinion on others, and I said, well, I very much hesitated before I responded because it's a loaded question that can get into a very big topic and discussion, and so you don't know exactly how it's going to be received, and so I wanted it to be received well. Because I'm very, to me, my faith is black and white. It is as far as the understanding goes. And there's elements of God in everywhere. What you do with that is A, up to you, but B is where the importance is at. You know what I mean? So you can go to every religion and you can pick out elements of God inside that because of ultimately where it came from. It's just been, the source has been twisted. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that being kind to people is wrong because somebody other than a Christian said it.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's still right. You're exactly right. And so I think that's part of when the Bible talks about being in the world but not of it. You could you could apply it there, but man, I went through a real big period of time to where I almost felt ashamed to believe what I do because I didn't want to associate with all the people that didn't treat it how I treat it or didn't act like, it's like, look, you're giving me a bad representation. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to. And so, you have to qualify. I had to qualify for myself that, all right, I don't have to be like them. I can be like me, and I can operate in a way that God wants me to operate. I don't need to slap a label on it. You know what I mean? I don't need to point out, hey, this is the reason why I'm treating you this way. That doesn't matter. um, and sometimes we have to go back to the basics and everything and the most simple explanation, and ask ourselves, all right, if we do nothing else today, what's the biggest thing that we do need to do? Well, love others. It doesn't say convict them. It doesn't say judge them. It doesn't say, convert them. It just says love them, period. That's it. Let them be them. All that I'm supposed to do and all that I'm instructed to do and all that I'm called to do is just love them. And I don't need a but after that statement. So, Keith, in a real short period, how do people reach you? Tell us how people can find you on social media, and we'll start there.
Keith L. Callaway. That is Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I got
Any,
some other stuff can't coming but if you get me, so
so if it, because it cut out again for a second, if people go there and find you, they'll see everything else that's coming along.
yes.
Okay. All right. Um, your company is K&L Industries,
Yes.
and you've got a couple other things that you've grown off, in peripheral, in uh along with that, but the main thing is K&L Industries, and you guys are asphalt pavers. You've been doing this. How long has K&L Industries been in existence?
K&L Industries started in 1984.
And you said you've gone through, what is it, two bankruptcies or just one?
No, one bankruptcy,
Okay.
4, now 5 recessions. And they say we're in one. It doesn't feel like any of the rest, let me tell you.
Does it feel worse or does it feel better?
The other 3, it feels way better. Construction in the other 3 was like the redheaded stepchild. Like as soon as a recession hit, construction was gone, completely gone.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to go scrap for every bone we could find during those 3. And I started in the middle of one, right, kind of near the tail end of one in 83,
Yeah.
when interest rates were 17 to 21% for homes.
Yeah.
Everybody's complaining now about a lot worse.
Yeah.
And people were still buying homes because they had no choice. So, I mean, they were a lot cheaper, but still.
Right. But still it's a principle, and so you say those couple things and it's like, man, um, you've definitely been knocked down and then kicked while you were there for quite some time, and then, if what'd you say, 5 recessions and bankruptcy, and then, family turmoil, like that's a lot. Most people can only handle one or two at once, much less multiple times over, and then for an extended period of time, and at this point in time, um, and feel free to share whatever credentials that you're proud of, or where you're at from where your business is now.
Well, about 10 years ago, I happened into it like they call it different. It was like the leading edge of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was invited to this thing, and so they asked around the room, and I had a minute to think about it. What do you consider your greatest achievement? And then at that point, I had like 11 people working for me, and each of them was provided a living wage
Yeah.
within my organization. And that was in the middle of the summer, and that one even then went up and down a little bit.
Yeah.
But right now, for 37 people, and so that's 37 families. Uh, I did the math on how many people that affects directly,
Mm-hmm.
in regards to direct family that's living with them, or is like, they have parents, they have brothers and sisters that are close by,
Yeah.
and it's somewhere around 200 people that it affects directly.
Yeah.
And that is to me amazing. It's astounding, humbling, and yet that's what gets me up every day to say, okay, as long as I'm involved in K&L, then I'm going to continue to work on the culture. I'm going to continue to make this company the best I can make it be.
Yeah.
There's a statement that Keith Jr. and I use fairly often.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds very conceited, but we believe it 100% that there's one is they would not leave our company to go to yours or anybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
And number two is that we believe with everything in us that we can take them farther here, that they can go further here than they could anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, there may be a ceiling to that,
Mm-hmm.
but we haven't seen that ceiling yet. And so it still holds true, and then we continue to strive for the existence of that truth.
Until you're proven wrong.
Just transforming lives one shovel at a time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Transforming lives one shovel at a time. That's what we're here to do.
Right.
That we're not here to pave. We do pave driveways to make that happen. We do parking lots, these kinds of things, but we transform lives by making sure they have a job, and that we're listening to them, and that we're lighting them up for whatever else they're doing in their life.
That's the catalyst that allows you to bring value to these people.
Yes. Real life change.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I know, honestly, I heard a lot about you, and I think I may have told you this, but I've heard a lot about the Callaways before I actually met the Callaways. I heard a lot about Keith Senior and Keith Jr. from people that I just knew in the industry. And so, and it was probably about a year and a half. I just thought to myself, I'm like, who are these people? How do I meet them? and what is it, that everybody always talks about?
Yeah.
And it didn't take long for me to figure out what exactly that is. And so, to be honest with you, there was a certain amount of like searching or seeking out to figure out what you guys are all about that came from my part. And I mean, me and you, I feel fortunate to be able to say I have a good relationship. You know, and that means a lot to me. And I feel like you know that, but if in case you don't, I'll tell you again, you know, it does. So
Yeah.
I
So you've
I
been to our house. Have you been to our house more than once? You've been to our house once, right?
no, just once, just
This
once.
one.
Yeah, and I stayed there for what I think 4 days, you know,
Yeah.
and I didn't know exactly what. Yeah, I don't really figure things out until I get there. You know, it's if it's not a right now problem, then I'm not worried about it. And so, you know, I kind of all I knew is I was gonna go out there, and all I knew is that I had a place to stay. You know, I didn't know what that looked like or where it was, and it turns out it was in your house. And you know, you just kind of accepted me and like family and let me live with you guys for 4 days. And it honestly, like, I want to be able to impact people and let them feel the same way that I felt, you know, which is, for one, wasn't a burden. For two, valued, and just kind of like a part of what was going on. I mean, you guys didn't break stride for what you're doing just because I was there, for one thing. You know, um, you didn't break stride, and I didn't expect you to. I didn't feel like a burden, and so, you know, just it was definitely an experience. And I went out there to learn. I didn't know exactly what I was going to learn, but it's like when you want to when you just, for me, I know that there's value in putting myself in an environment that I want to learn from. I don't know exactly what I'm going to learn, but I know that I need to be over there. You know, for whatever time period, for whatever it is I'm going to gain from that, but I just need to be there. And you know, I've done that a few times in my life. The first was in Arizona when me and Brandon took off, and it's like, I don't know what I'm going to learn, but we're going to go and figure it out. And if we have to create our own environment, then we will. You know, and then I've done that with Kevin Gray at ADC, and then you guys out in Oregon, Portland. You know, and I hope that I can then pay that forward to somebody else at some point in time too.
Oh, you will. We'll send someone out to you, I'm sure. Somebody
Perfect.
will. Yeah.
Perfect.
So you sat at my table. The other claim to fame, the other thing that's important to us, the Callaways, is that
Hmm.
is that we have a big table
Yeah.
now, and it's one table that's 14 feet long.
Yeah. It's big.
But yeah, it's big, and we like it when it's full. We
Yeah.
like it when there's people around it. We can seat 20 people at our table. We can seat another half a dozen or more at our island,
Yeah.
and we did that because we have a big family, partly, but
Yeah.
because we like to invite people over and be part of our culture, our journey
Yeah.
is actually known throughout the country. So your listeners are welcome. All they have to do is reach out, and they can come sit at my table. Absolutely.
And he's not lying. He's not saying that just to say it, and he's not lying. So, Keith, thank you very much once again. Am I going to see you in Florida next week?
Yes, you will see me in Florida next week. I'll
All
be
right.
there. I'll be there by Wednesday morning.
Okay. Okay. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you. Thank you again so much for your time and opening up the way that you have. So, for your heart and everything. So, there's nothing more I can say than thank you.
All
So,
right. Well, we will see you next week, and God bless you, my friend.
all right. Thanks, Keith.
Yeah.